Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of Sounds of the Diaspora, Artist to Artist, a conversation with yours truly, Dion Parson. I'm really excited about our guest tonight. It's a gentleman that I actually just met a couple months ago, hanging out in Michigan. I was an artist in residence at Interlochen Arts Academy, and he actually was an artist in residence as well. So that was the first time we met. And we had a great time, working with the students, performing, doing different jam sessions and everything. And man, we just got along so well. And I was like, I got to have him on the show because he has such a wealth of knowledge and information to share. And I really think, you, our audience, would enjoy this. So please join me in welcoming to the show, composer, arranger, educator, and well sought after, amazing, master guitarist, Mr. Randy Napoleon.
Oh man, thank you for that. I'm so glad to be with you.
How you doing today, Randy?
I'm doing great. I'm doing just like you, which is trying to do 30 things at once. And I'm actually very comfortable with a low level of boiling chaos at all times.
Right. Okay, so things are well in Michigan.
Yes, everything is great.
And I see
beautiful fall weather and everything.
Great. And I see that you're hanging out at Michigan State with my good friend Rodney Whitaker.
That's right. I mean, what can I say about Rodney? This is he's been like a big brother to me for 30 years. Okay. I met him when I was a teenager, and he really, is one of the people who showed me the ropes and taught me how to play, and that got me ready to go to New York. And then I went off and I got gigs and I had my career. And then, he's one of the people responsible for me being a professor now. So I work with him at Michigan State. And so, he brought me back and he taught me how to teach and, how to communicate to students. And I'm actually working as his associate director now for the jazz program as well. So now I'm joking that he's teaching me how to administrate also. So he's really, I don't know, I'm very grateful to him. And he's, as you know, just, one of the coolest people to hang out with.
Mm-hmm. So 30 years. So you met him when you was 13.
Right. No, I was older than that. Yeah, right. I was 19 when I met him. Yeah.
19. Okay, 19. Yes. I misunderstood. Yeah. So you were in high school or you were in college?
I was in college. Yeah. Okay. And Rodney was playing at it's a really soulful spot in Detroit called Burt's Marketplace. And I got a ride from a friend out there. I didn't have a car, and I just really wanted to meet and hear Rodney Whitaker, and I was kind of bold, so I brought my guitar and I brought my amplifier, and at the end of the first set, I walked up to him. I said, Mr. Whitaker, I said, my name's Randy Napoleon. I was saying, I was wondering if I could sit in with you. And he looked at me and he said, okay. But he said, but you see that alley there? There was like a hallway that led to an alley. And I said, yeah. He said, there's a 300-pound guy out there. He said, if you sound bad, he's going to kick your butt. And I got scared. I said, oh my God. And he said, do you still want to play? And I said, yeah. And then of course he started laughing. He was just messing with me, but I like to remind him of that story because it's funny. So that's how we met. And and then he started dropping little pearls of wisdom and just being around him and getting to feel kind of his beat and his sound.
So did you go to Michigan State as well, or you went somewhere else?
No, I went to our bitter rival, University of Michigan. So I don't advertise that too much these days. Actually,
that's your alma mater, you know.
It's all love, though.
That's out the bag now. So
that's right. Yeah.
But that's great, man, because Rodney's been so influential for a lot of folks. I met him in New York in the early '90s when he was with Roy Hargrove, and we just formed a friendship and played.
Yeah.
I brought him down to the islands, with Ron Blake and Mark Carey on piano, and we just had so much fun, and so it was good. It was really good to connect with him again. It's been about 15 years since I've seen him.
Wow.
I would see him in New York, pop in, but just to hang out and play on that level, and connecting with you as well. And I could tell that you really have a passion for education. I want to talk about that for a minute because, we didn't know each other, and our first presentation to the kids was Chris just like throwing up on stage and be like, okay, cool. Rodney wasn't there, and we started to play without him.
That's right. Yeah.
And we just jumped right into it, and was just passing the dialogue on between us working with the kids, and it just worked out really well. So I could tell you have that passion, and so I want to talk about that a little bit. Of course, you're playing and you're an amazing guitarist, and we're going to get into some of your songs in a minute. But as an educator, what was it that made you decide to pursue that route as well?
It's funny because I resisted it, and it was not something that I imagined for myself when I was younger. I mean, part of the Napoleon family lore is when my wife Allison and I were, getting engaged and deciding to get married. I told her, I said, look, I'm always going to love you. You don't have to worry about that, but you need to know, I'm always going to have to stay in New York. This is where I need to live, and I'm always going to be on the road a lot, Mm-hmm. And she said, well, okay, I can, I love you too. I can accept that. She said, would you ever consider teaching? And I said, no, I'm one of the cats, I've fought my way up into this scene, and no, but perspective changes. And when our first child was born, boy, that apartment started feeling small, and I missed them so much when I was gone, and before we had kids, my wife used to travel with me some, and everything made sense, and it stopped making sense. So that opened me up. I suppose necessity opened me up to saying, I want to live my life differently. But the happy coda to this refrain is, it turns out that I love teaching as much as I love playing, or more. I really, I don't know, when I moved here and was in a situation where I could really develop these relationships with students long term and work with them week after week, year after year, you really get to know them as people, and you see them change as humans and as musicians, and also really make some incredible art. So I always have a band with some young cats who are up and coming, as well as, continuing to make time to play with my mentors and peers. But a pet peeve of mine is, sometimes I'll hear older musicians saying like, oh, young musicians today, they don't know any tunes, and they don't really know how to swing and this or that. And, my feeling is like, the young musicians I know, I'm not having that problem at all, but also, I invest in them, and then they reciprocate, so if there's something that they're not addressing on the bandstand, I'll let them know. And then that gives them a chance to get it together. And I've been able to, I don't know, I mean, what could be better than like training your collaborators? It's like they understand me better than anybody. So
right. And that's great that you see it that way, because that's really a good approach for folks to see it that way. What I really admire is that, you took the time to go out and become one of the cats and get on the road and play. So when you get in the classroom, you're not only teaching academically, you're teaching from your own personal experience, of life lessons. And, that was reflective of when we were doing the workshops as well, because, that's one of the challenges that, I try to share with some of the, younger guys, like, should I go on the road or should I go to grad school? I'm like, try to do both and get as much experience as you can, because, you know, most of the cats will end up teaching at some point or sharing their knowledge with someone. You know, before I took a teaching job, I had a drum school in New York, and I mentored a lot of young cats that still on the scene doing their thing, but I was on the road a lot, and I would come back and give that road knowledge because they were trying to get on the road. So, you know, from an academic standpoint, it's really good to have that experience as well.
I feel that so strongly. And that's a funny thing, especially in the age of the internet. I feel like most of the information is accessible to people anywhere, which is a good thing. In other words, I don't know, the content of what I'm talking about is probably not that different from anybody else who knows something about harmony and knows something about the music. But the way I learned, so much of it was nonverbal, and I don't know, education is in terms of being a musician, you really have to address all of it. And I mean, for example, like I spent 13 years in Freddy Cole's band, and that's one of my primary influences. Mm-hmm. The verbal instructions that Freddy gave me, I could probably fit on one piece of paper. Mm-hmm. But you know, being next to him and seeing how he dealt with certain musical situations and how he dealt with certain interpersonal situations, and just feeling the nuance of how he would phrase things. It's an impossible thing to teach with words or teach out of a book. Mm-hmm. You just have to live with someone. I mean, it's like learning the accent of a foreign language. Like, you could learn French out of a book, but it probably wouldn't sound correct. You know, you need to be with native speakers. So I spend a lot of time with my students, and you know, my hope is that intellectually they know the things that I know about music and the things that you could learn from a book, because that's important. You know, I heard someone the other day talking about politics, and they said a good politician needs to have poetry and plumbing. You know, and poetry is like the big vision. Mm-hmm. And in our world, that's the art, that's the feeling, that's the sound, that's the accenting. And the plumbing is like, okay, do you know how to play on that chord? You know, do you know that scale? Mm-hmm. Good fingerings for that, you know, nuts and bolts stuff. It's not not sexy, but we need to do it. So I want my students to have both of those things as well as I'm able to convey it, you know, and hopefully they get a little piece of the people who raised me through spending time with me and playing together and talking about it and listening and the whole thing, you know.
And that's great, man. So besides Freddy Cole, I know you spend some time with, you know, some other amazing musicians. How was it working with my good friend Benny Green?
You know? Unbelievable and totally different. But yeah, I think that the road experiences I had and the concentrated exposure to these people who, I don't know, I'll idolize forever. You can't put it into words, the value of it. I had much less time with Benny. I was in his band for 1 year, and but it was unbelievable. I mean, we all know the kind of player he is, and I've never heard anything like Benny from anyone. And I think I don't know, people maybe, of course, everyone knows who Benny Green is, but maybe they don't know really how great this guy is. He's really the truth. So hearing that level and hearing someone deliver like that, it was very intimidating. I mean, and still is actually, but it gave me a really authentic sense of how high there is to potentially go. And unlike Freddie, actually, Benny could really verbalize the things that he wanted from me, which was really helpful for me. He would spell it out, you know, the things that he was hearing or not hearing. And, you know, he was very unsparing. Sometimes it was hard to hear, but I learned, I don't know, 4, you know, lifetimes worth of stuff in 1 year from him. And actually that was 25 years ago, and I'm still digesting it.
Exactly. Yeah. It's like that sometimes. Yeah. It's like that sometimes, man. I was fortunate to see him with the Messengers.
Oh man.
Yeah. I saw that band. It was amazing, So,
Wow.
so how was and how was your experience with the Clayton Hamilton Orchestra? I mean, that's one of my favorite big
Oh
bands.
man, same thing. I mean, John and Jeff and Jeff Clayton, who I miss so much, they were just like a model of excellence in everything. And I don't know, class personified. Everything was done right. Every fill is set up right. Every little harmonic nuance in the chart that John wrote was right. Like it was scripted, since the Big Bang. It's like, this was inevitable,
Right.
predetermined. That is the voicing it had to be, I mean, I don't know. Amazing.
It's a great band. I didn't know you at the time, but I saw them a couple of times at Dizzy's. Have you ever played Dizzy's Club in New York with them?
I never played Dizzy's with that band. I was in the band before Dizzy's existed, actually.
Okay. So you kind of like original Jeff. Yeah. But I saw the band a couple of times at Dizzy's. I just really amazed. It's just amazing. Yeah.
It is. It's so impactful. And I mean, I think there's a lot of great big bands and a lot of great ways to make music with a big band, but that style is my preference. I mean, for big band. And I don't know. I think, perhaps for all of us, we spend our lives measuring ourselves against the really great teachers we have. And I think about them a lot. And when I do something, I think it's pretty good, I say, okay, all right, that's cool. But what if John Clayton were looking at this, or, what if Jeff Hamilton was looking at this? I say, okay, maybe I'd like to take one more pass, at this. That's life,
It is life. Yeah. But it's great. A great experience for you to, again, for yourself, but also for your students,
Yeah.
One of the other things I wanted to ask you about is being a leader versus a sideman, because you have about 13, 14 recordings out as a leader.
Yeah.
And you've put out some really great music, and after working with so many masters or learning from them, how is it different being a leader? And that's one question. How is it different being a leader versus a sideman? And then what made you decide to be a leader?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's always been part of what I've done since I was a kid, and it's never been as established as any of these bands. So I would say one thing that's different when I'm a leader is I'm usually making less money. I've lived in some very elite situations as a sideman, but as a band leader, it's kind of just all up and down, and trying to find opportunities that are good for the different projects. And so, most of those records, I was making them when I was on the road with somebody else, and I'd book little gigs here or there. And, and sometimes you get some really nice opportunities, and it's great. And sometimes, just doing something to keep the music going. And I will say probably post-pandemic is the most that I've focused on being a leader. At this point, most of my gigs are as a leader, and I am performing less because I'm teaching more. But this is the first time, post-pandemic is the first time that I haven't been a member of anyone else's band. So I've been able to focus on this a little bit more, and it feels like the right time in life to, I'm 48, and a lot of the musicians I love playing with at this point are younger than me. And, they're looking at me and saying, yeah, make some gigs for us, and I'm saying, okay, this is probably my responsibility now. So, but I mean, I don't think of it musically really as being separate from the stuff I'm doing as a sideman. And, you asked me about some of the people who are most important to me already. And I think it's kind of like the menu of options in my mind when I'm creating music is thinking about, my friends and my teachers. And sometimes I might lean more towards what, this cat would do. Sometimes I might lean more towards this, but when you're in someone's band, you're really trying to learn how to do it their way. And the more successful you are at that, the more that becomes part of your toolkit, So, and then, everyone scrambles the eggs a little bit different. And for me, every record I've done has been a little bit different, or I like changing the presentation, and I like trying, different things with instrumentation or orchestration and arrangements. And I also really love playing standards with, very little ink. Like I love just, jazz, doing the thing of like we did. We just sat down, we started playing some tunes, and that's kind of the core of the whole thing too. So
yeah,
I don't know. I guess
listening to your music that you share was is a variety of different things, and I really enjoyed it. I sat back and I'm like, okay, I didn't expect that on this tune. And then some of the tunes that I knew the musicians on, you got Quincy Davis and some stuff, and some of the other cats that I know, and I'm like, yeah, I can hear that, and but it was really a nice variety of music, and I want to talk about some of the stuff you've written. You have a CD called "The Door Is Open."
Yeah.
And, when did that come out?
That came out, I think, 2 or 3 years ago. That's one of my more recent ones. And we have this kind of amazing thing happening here. There's a composer who lives here in the Lansing area, and his name is Greg Hill. And he kind of came out of nowhere. I knew him as a fan of the music. Like I met him on one of the jazz cruises, and this is when I was still living in New York. And, we got to talking, and he was from Michigan, which is my home state. So I said, oh man, so we became friends, and I knew he was a big fan of the music, and, big supporter of the music. And he had a kind of fascinating personal history. Like he was a truck driver for many years, and then he was a CFO of a tech company, and all sorts of stuff, but many years into knowing him, he said, yeah, Randy, I've been writing some music. I said, oh, great. And he's got all these quirky tunes, but they really are deeply collaborations, because he'll give me something. He'll say, what do you want to do with this? And then I go and I might take, one theme from up here, and I put it over here, and I add a different bass line, and then write an interlude. And so the music we've done together, sometimes it's hard for me to know, unless I go back to the source. I say, which part is Greg's? And
right.
But he's really open to that. He says that's the point. So yeah, that was one of my collaborations with Greg. And like we were talking about, I'm always thinking about different sounds. So my friend Aubrey Johnson, she's an incredible singer who lives in Brooklyn, and she has this kind of like freakish range. She can go, this is high, and she goes, up there,
right?
And very flexible voice, and and then Rodney Whitaker and Quincy Davis and Rick Rowe. These are Rodney and Rick are my big brothers that I've known since I was a kid, and Quincy and I were the same age. He's one of my best friends, and he's probably on all these records. Actually, I mean that's these are my Till Death Do Us Part.
Right.
And then Aubrey's kind of the sprinkle of a very different color. Like her aesthetic is different, musicianship extremely high, but we're coming kind of from like blues and bebop, and I don't know, she's got like elements of Joni Mitchell, and I really fell in love with her singing. But I said, all right, what happened? We put that in with this, and then sometimes I wrote some words, and sometimes having her sing an instrumental part, and and then we had three horns on that as well too, to just kind of some textures.
Quite interested. And then I sat back and I listened to it. That's okay. So I want our audience to hear this is a collaboration with Randy Napoleon and Greg Hill, and this is from the recording called "The Door Is Open," and it's entitled "The Lost Tune." Let's check it out.
believing in the promise of love's fantasy. We thought our heart song could destroy impediments to joy. Then rhythms of our laughter slowed and died
Yeah, that was the Lost Tune. And you mentioned beforehand the personnel, but can you repeat the personnel again on that?
Actually, on that track, I was thinking as we were talking, that was Lucas Lefebvre playing bass on that track.
Okay.
And, you know, one of the things, too, that I've done with the last number of records I've made is I always include some youngins, too. So actually, this worked out nicely. Lucas has moved to Miami at this point, but he was still living here, and he was one of Rodney's prize students, and I always have, you know, one of our cats doing all my gigs, just the little gigs around the area and stuff. And Lucas had been making a lot of stuff with me, and there was a flight cancellation, and Rodney couldn't make the first day of the session. And, you know, I said, okay, no problem. You know, and I called Lucas. I said, come on, man, let's go. You know, and he had even helped me shed the music. So he knew it. He came in and he rocked it. And then, yeah, it was Quincy Davis on drums, Rick Rowe, and Aubrey Johnson singing.
Nice. So we got some comments here. You know, one of the good things that our audience kind of chimes in and everything. One person said beautiful. Another one said great guitar work, Randy. So, yeah.
Thank you for that. I need all the encouragement I can get. I'll tell you, guitar will kick your butt. Some days everything's great, and other days it's like, man, what am I doing? So thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah, we all know how that is.
Man, it just
yeah. Hey, we know. But so your thoughts, your two thoughts is what I wanted to say.
Yes.
That's the other song that you share from us, and that's from a different project. That's from
Waking Dream.
Waking Dreams, yeah.
Right. Yeah. So this was, you know, this is the most recent record. And you know, we were talking about band leading and business stuff. And I figured, well, if it's hard to find gigs for a trio, let me just make it an octet, you know. So this is really, it's like, you know, if mental illness came to life as a band. It's 5 guitars and a rhythm section. So it's Quincy and Rodney and Rick again. Although I also have two incredible young musicians playing on a few tracks. A bass player named Langston Kitchen and a drummer named Michael Reed, who, you know, you'll hear about these cats down the way, you know. But yeah, you know, it's and you know, one of the things I think that we're all trying to do as musicians and artists is continually stretch ourselves. And I'm basically a hard bop cat, like I really love bebop. I really love blues. I love standards, but I do sometimes feel like I get in the trap, like everything I write, it sounds like a repeat of something I already did. So this particular track we're going to listen to, I was really checking out Beethoven and Chopin, and I was studying some scores. And, please don't ask me to speak intelligently about that music, because I don't know nearly as much about it as anyone who spends their life with it. But I loosely use some of their music as a model for something, but, bringing it into our world. So, yeah. And the two thoughts are no war, no racism. I think that would take care of a lot,
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So that's it. This is Two Thoughts.
Okay. Well, let's check it out. Two Thoughts. Yeah, that's so unique, man. That's what I like about that is it has the classical element like the march struck up, but it's swinging on top of it. It's unique.
I really appreciate that. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if people will like it or if it's their cup of tea, but I definitely, I mean, I think music is so infinite, and I think about my heroes and my teachers every day, and I am still, just like my students, transcribing and studying Charlie Parker, and that's the highest level. With that said, there's so many different ways to put the whole thing together that it seems as if we don't take advantage of the possibilities. Maybe we're cheating ourselves, or we're not adding something in. Because if I wait until I play as good as Charlie Parker, that's never going to happen. So then, I don't know, you know what I'm saying? I'm trying to use what I have and present something and make something different, make the presentation different, and work with what you have. And part of what I had too, and what made this record possible is, now I have been teaching at Michigan State. This is my 12th year. And many of my former students are really incredible guitarists. So all 4 of the other guitarists are former students. And, that really is who I've been working with. Like, it was an authentic thing for me to say, I want to do a project with these people, because that's really, if you catch me on any day, that's who I'm spending my time with. So,
right.
I don't know. You just work with what you got.
Yeah. So there's a question here. It's not smooth jazz. It's not improvisational, and doesn't seem to be in 7th major or minor. So what is it?
Yeah, I don't know. That's a great question. I don't know. But maybe it has a little bit of a lot of different things.
Exactly. Yeah.
I had a really inspiring conversation with Quincy, actually, leading up to this record, because we talked about it, and I was writing more than I usually do. I mean, sometimes just a melody and some chord changes is all you need, and you can play on it. And that's, as we talked about in the beginning, I really love doing that. But this was really a composition and an ensemble project. And Quincy is such a genius in his spare time, when he's not, a full-time professor at, North Texas, and, running the drum department or touring and playing drums at the highest level. He just snuck around and got a master's degree in classical composition just in his spare time. But, I asked him, because, we've been working on music our whole lives. I said, I'm curious, what are some, takeaways that you got, from studying that other perspective, and he thought about it for a second, and he said, one thing he said that I really took away was, use your themes, keep them longer. So one of the things I did with that is I had a couple little rhythmic motifs, and I moved them through a bunch of different environments. And it's a very simple idea, but actually when he mentioned that, it gave me a window to appreciate some of those classical composers in a way that I hadn't. I really have just always been attracted to swing, and which is not to say that I don't enjoy other things, but it made I don't know, gave me a new way of listening to things, and perhaps writing.
Yeah, and all of that's great, man. And like you said, you've been attracted to swing. I want to jump into our next song, but before we do that, I just want to read this last comment. The change in beat and breaks makes this so interesting. You may have already said it, but who's on keys? They're just asking for that.
Rick Rowe. Yeah, he's one of our secret weapons back here in Michigan. He's about as bad as they come. Yeah.
Great. Well, I want to keep flowing, because we're pushing the clock, but I want to get these songs in. You shared another song from the CD Between Friends, and let's just jump right into it. This is the next song we're going to play. It's called Face the Truth, and this is a medium swing. Let's check it out.
Yeah.
Yes, that's entitled Our Thoughts. And that's a real simple, straight ahead, medium swing.
That's right. Yeah. And that's, I guess we're doing this reverse chronological as luck would have it. But that was, I think I was maybe 24 or 25 when we recorded that record. And that was pretty much the extent of how I would write at that point. That was a melody and some hits. That's it. And,
right.
But I guess you work with what you got. Also, there's some things about young me that I wish I had back. I think fingers were moving quick, and I'm trying to figure out how to make that happen. So I think, at every stage you just say, all right, what's on hand? What can I use to make something good?
There you go. We have a comment saying, I can hear the 8 notes played evenly, but swing is added and an uneven swung rhythm comes through as well. Yeah. So nice. Love the upright bass. It's always.
Yeah. Oh, hey.
Yeah.
I think that might be Dave Wong's first record. Who's now, one of the first call people. But, I remember feeling, I met him right when he finished high school, and he's just, I don't know, maybe 5 years younger than me. So maybe he was 20 or something on this when we did this. Had to do the math, but he was really young. And I was listening to him. I said, maybe I don't understand bass that well, but it seems like this kid is really great. Like, I think this is just as good as anybody, and then a couple of years later, Roy Haynes hired him, and then Jimmy Heath, and then, now he's an icon, and I'm proud to know him, but he was always great. That's proof right there.
There you go. Mm-hmm. Another comment says, so cool, so playful, love it. Yeah. Good comments. Folks are checking out the music, man.
Good. Thank you. That's the whole thing, I guess, is we want to make something nice and then share it with people.
Mm-hmm. Well, man, we're almost out of time, but we have one more song that I want to squeeze in with our last 5 minutes. And this is from the Jukebox Crowd CD and one of your compositions entitled Against the Grain.
Yeah, I guess no special story behind this. Just, it's kind of dark melody. So I was thinking about when you're fighting against the way things are.
Mm. Okay, well, let's check it out. Against the Grain.
And that's a wrap.
Yeah, that's a wrap. I mean, I love that 3 Latin feel. It's just,
Yeah,
I was
I
like a
would love
nice
to hear you on
cha-cha
that.
kind of, yeah, nice cha-cha vibe on it. It's really nice. Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah. So this is so peaceful. Great last song for the night. Thank you, Dion and Randy. Great evening. Okay, thank you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Some folks checking it out. Man, some great music, great concept. I love what you're doing with your students and including them in your projects and just sharing your love of the music, of all the different styles that you're studying and putting out there. It's just a wonderful thing that you're doing, man. So just keep doing it, and we wish you continued success, and just especially thanks, special thanks, not especially thanks, special thanks for taking the time out of your busy schedule to share.
Oh man, this was so great, and thank you for playing the music and having me on, and thank you everyone who listened. This is beautiful, and you're doing the same thing. I'm trying to be like you, and this is an honor to be included. So thank you.
Great. Before you leave, can you share with our audience, your social media, website information, how they can get in touch with you?
Oh yeah, probably Instagram's the best.
Okay.
Randy Napoleon Music.
Okay.
That's it. That's a good one.
That's it.
Yeah. Come, please.
Any gigs coming up? Anything coming up soon?
I do. I know I always have something. This weekend I'm playing in Detroit with Anthony Stanko, incredible trumpet player who's my colleague here at Michigan State. So we're doing 3 nights at Cliff Bell's, and I can't remember what's up after that. I got to look at it.
Okay.
Always here or there. So
right.
And always looking for more stuff too. So
there you go.
That's in mind.
Great. Well, thank you again. Thanks for the music. Thanks for the great conversation and sharing your Instagram info. Randy Napoleon Music at Instagram.
That's right. Thank you.
Right, man. Well, you have a good evening and all the best, man. Continue success.
Thank you, Dion.
All right.
I hope to see you soon.
Yes. Take care. Bye-bye. That's the great Randy Napoleon, and sharing his story and his music with us, man. So it was really good time hanging out with him, catching up with him, and listening to his music. It's great stuff. I mean, he's doing some amazing stuff, just checking out the different styles, classical and other types of jazz, and just combining it and really mentoring his kids to another level to perform with him. So please support him when you see him performing out there in the Michigan, East Lansing, Detroit area. Okay. And I want to invite you guys to come back and join me next week as I bring another fascinating guest. This gentleman's a trumpet player, music educator extraordinaire. He's versed in the marching band, HBCU marching band scene and stuff. So I want to bring you guys a different take on the sounds of the diaspora. Come back and join me when we bring Dr. William Irvin to the sounds of the diaspora next week. Okay. It's been a pleasure hanging out with you guys and sharing this great information and music. Wish you a beautiful night. Take care. All the best. Have a good evening.